Well, hello there friends, Mr. E here, and today we are going to be taking a look at all of the various weapons that received buffs, nerfs, and adjustments for this new Darktide update that's coming out called Beyond the Hive. It'll be out on March the 17th, so you'll be able to see those changes live then. Now, in my personal opinion, the list of buffs that we'll hear here, and I'll talk more about my overview at the end, but I just don't think it's far enough. I think that this is a small course correct. It's like steering the ship a couple of degrees in a direction, but we don't receive updates and balance adjustments anywhere near often enough to go with these little small incremental changes. There's a ton of weapons that go unaddressed in this patch. There's a ton of weapons that are receiving changes that I'm just like scratching my head and like, okay, is that really all we can do for these things, given the power level of certain weapons in the game? And I just don't understand if they have a overarching vision for potentially balancing anything down the line. If they are intending to work on balance and they're going to be adjusting like every month or every couple weeks or so, you know, that this would be a great size balance change for that. But if this is the sort of balance change we can expect every 3 months with a major update, it's just not going to be enough to ever get this situation like leveled out, really. So that's my overall thoughts, but I'll come back to that at the very end. Before I start, though, let me say thank you to all those who came and checked out the live stream. I did record a version of this on the live stream. Unfortunately, I decided to scrap it in large part because Techno Freak was too generous during it. So shout out Techno Freak for your donations that distracted me enough that I had to re-record this. And also shout out to my Mr. Emperor tier members, Elise and Neva and Sai, my best friends, of course. Now let's begin here. We're going to start with the first weapon that's on the list, the Shivs, the improvised Mark 1 Shivs and the improvised Mark 3 Shivs for the Hive scum. So these weapons, the real thing they're trying to address here is that no one was really using the Mark III Shivs. The reason being, there was no reason to. The Mark III Shivs, their whole identity is they're supposed to have better horde cleave. Instead of having heavy stab attacks, those the very recognizable overhead twin slam and that little twin thrust that you could do with the Mark I, the Mark III has like these slashing vanguard attacks that are supposed to be better for horde clear. But the reason to use them was pretty much non-existent when the Mark I could horde clear just fine, because the Mark I, its light attacks could pop off some pretty serious damage, and it had relatively high cleave on those light spams. So all you would do to get through hordes is light attack. Anytime you saw a heavy target, you just heavy attack. No brainer, right? It ended up feeling a lot like the dueling sword in that sense. So what they've done is they have really reined back the cleave on the Shivs, on the Mark I Shivs, so that they are much more focused on being a heavy target, stabby stab weapon. You can still attack things with light attacks in melee, but you won't be getting the cleave numbers you were before, where you were able to hit pretty much like 4 enemies at any given time. So they've lowered the base cleave from 3 to 5 to 1 to 3 on light attacks on light 1, light 3, and from 4 to 2 on light 2 and light 4. So basically having the cleave. And this is the base cleave, which is really important because the Hive scum has at least 2 different talents that most builds use that multiply your base cleave. So you can get up to 100% cleave with just 2 talents. And that means that you are going to be cutting through lots and lots of enemies. So I don't think this will matter too much for your normal Poxwalker hordes. You might lose like 1 target hit, but what will really matter is against like shotgunners and gunners and ragers. The problem is like 1 attack could cleave through multiple of those guys and just drop them all because of hypercritical and stuff like that triggering. So they've reined that in, and at the same time they've given a buff to the Mark III. They want those heavy attacks in the Mark III to have value. The Mark III, instead of having those twin stabs, if you've never played with it, it does like a heavy slash horizontally, and it's not that great because the real reason you want to use these Shivs is for that single target damage for exploding targets. And what they've done here is they buffed the damage of the slash by, looks like about like 7% or so, from a maximum of 160 to 170, and they have buffed the impact on it by a little bit less than 20%. So yeah, that'll, I guess, do something. I don't know if it's quite enough to level out the gap. Again, the real reason to use these is because that single target explode you damage on those heavy stabs is so crazy good. You can pop most targets in 1 attack. It's like the same deal with the dueling sword, right? The whole reason to use the dueling sword is because those heavy attacks are so good. The lunging thrust is so good. So it's going to be hard to compare the Mark III and the Mark I, but that's what they've done. Okay, let's move on now to the Crowbar, which has had a couple of changes here. The Crowbar is a weapon that I made a video all about, and the myriad of problems that it faces as a weapon on this class. It just can't compete with weapons like the Shivs because the Shivs are so fast, and the Shivs get such high critical rates, and they have great blessings in addition. So the problem the Crowbar faces is that he can't really make great use of hyper violence, which is an absurdly powerful talent. He's not getting as much crit rate as a lot of other weapons are because he doesn't have good blessings for crit, and he doesn't have a great synergy in terms of when he does get crits, it's not that big of an increase of damage as compared to things like those Shivs, things like the Bone Saw, etc. But they have addressed a couple of issues related to the jankiness of the Crowbar and the experience using it. One big thing they definitely want to lean into is that pry bar mode where you have the hook pointed down, the anti-armor mode. That mode, they really want players to have the freedom to disengage at any time. Previously, you would lose a chunk of your stamina if you disengaged early, if you dodged or blocked out of there, instead of finishing the rip out animation. Now it's pretty much nothing and when you if you dodge out early. And they also increase the rip out damage by about 8% or so. So from a cap of 240 to a cap of 260, which is pretty good. So yeah, we're getting a little bit of an upgrade on terms of that rip out damage, which will be multiplied further and further by all of your other damage buffs. So it's not just 260 flat, but that's a pretty good upgrade. And they changed the speed, or they increased the speed on swapping between modes by about 10%. I think this was a thing that they definitely needed to do. I think they could have gone for more than 10%, like 20% maybe to start. I was swapping it back and forth, and I really don't feel the 10% difference. But hey, maybe they know better than I do. We'll go on to our next weapon here, which is the Thunderhammer. And yeah, another weapon where I feel like there's so much they could do with this weapon to make it usable. And they have done one thing here, which is fine, it's good, but I just don't think it addresses the core issues with the Thunderhammer. So if you are unfamiliar and you haven't used the Thunderhammer, it is a weapon that is entirely validated or justified in existence by its charge attack. But when you go the kablam attack, that's the only time it's worth it to use the Thunderhammer. The rest of the time, it's literally miserable to play with this thing because the light attacks and the heavy attacks unempowered do almost no damage. They don't seem to have the proportional stagger to how much stagger swinging a fucking 6 foot long hammer around should be doing. It's weird. It's just a weird experience. It feels like you're playing hitting dudes with a rubber mallet until you empower this thing and then you can blow stuff up. And the real problem that they addressed in this one, at least, was that there are certain types of enemies, namely maniacs, which includes chargers and ragers, mutants, that took no damage from unempowered attacks. They had a 0.5 ADM, which means the attack damage modifier. So basically, the damage that is on the weapon, whatever your weapon reads at the top of the page and says oh, this much for light attack, this much for heavy attack, have that. That's how much you were actually doing to these targets. So it was literally impossible if you got caught in a moment where you couldn't charge up your weapon and ragers jumped on you. You could kill them with the hammer because it just didn't do any damage versus them. Also, bonking a mutant would take you 8 years to kill without empowering it. I just don't think that there should be any weapon in the game that is so terrible to use moment to moment. The only time it's any good is when you empower it. You get one attack, and then there's a downtime for the attack too. The power sword also requires you to empower between attacks, but you can do it super fast. Its attacks come out very, very fast, and it's not that bad a weapon even if it's not empowered, right? You can very quickly slash down a couple of poxwalkers in front of you. If you wanted to kill a couple poxwalkers with the Thunderhammer, you're still wielding this thing and going bonk, bonk. It's so slow. There are so many issues with weapons like this, slow weapons in this game. They just do not compete with fast attacking things. And I want you to just think about the Thunderhammer and also then take a look at the Relic Blade. And the Relic Blade just makes the Thunderhammer look like a joke because the Relic Blade can use like a constantly empowered mode to do massive boss damage, and it also gets amazing horde clear, really good strike downs, and can kill armor. Yeah, there's just no use case of the Thunderhammer, and it is a jank-ass weapon that's going to make you play worse when you have it. I just reject players that have Thunderhammer when when I see them in my lobbies, because I'm playing like Havoc 40, right, and trying hard. It just never goes well unless you're absolutely the goatest of all goats. But then you could just be doing better with the Relic Blade. So yeah, it just needs so much more help than they're giving it here, but whatever. Let's move on to the Heavy Sword, another weapon that I've been pretty sour on in the past. This weapon actually did get a couple of nice buffs that I think might seek to address some of the weaknesses, and I do really like one of these buffs. I think one of these buffs here is going to give it a life of its own, a reason to exist, which has been hard pressed to justify recently. So the reason that this weapon still does really struggle is armor. It's carapace armor, specifically crushers, right? There's nowhere to hit them. There's no way you can hurt these freaking enemies with this heavy sword. What you had to do is basically just spam the weapon special, which turns the weapon over and does the little back strike with the little hooked tip on the weapon. It did an okay. It was like a very small hit, but at least it had some armor penetration, so you could actually hurt these stupid guys. And they have changed that so that the actual impact of that weapon, of that attack, is not that heavy. It doesn't do that much damage on its own, but attacking like that will put a brittleness debuff on the enemy. So yeah, it's a 10% brittleness debuff, which is different than default brittleness. So if they have other brittleness effects on them from other targets, that's good. So you can use this weapon to soften up targets and make them take extra damage, which is good. And then it has a new follow-up after you use your weapon special, which is the hooked backwards attack. Then you can follow up with a light attack, which is going to do a better job at carving into that armor. So that's going to be your sort of new anti-carapace tools. Although this weapon is intended, as they say, to not do very much against carapace, I really just feel like we then therefore shouldn't have a weapon in the game, or an enemy in the game who is entirely carapace and has like 6,000 HP, but that's just me. There is also a very interesting change here that I think is really cool. You can now sprint during all of your attacks and attack starts. So this was the thing that previously this weapon is actually pretty cool on the Zealot, because the Zealot can charge in while he's holding down a heavy, and the heavy is a nice sweeping uppercut that is high cleave and can like chop through stuff pretty well. The Zealot, you know, he could make that movement towards enemies with the charge, but normally if you hold the channel on the heavy, it slows you to a crawl, right? Well, now they've made it so that you can sprint while you're doing that, which is good. You'll be able to retain your movement while you are sliding around with this thing and get some of that. So it's a more mobile weapon. So you're running around lopping dudes' heads up. I think that's a good way to give it some sort of identity. Remains to be seen if it works out in game. A lot of more experienced players tell me this weapon is just fine, didn't need the buffs, but I beg to differ, because if we're looking at the overall power level of the weapons of the game, this one is far behind the curve, and I don't think we're going down to where we are here, so we need to go up with the heavy sword quite a bit, and I think this is a good start in that direction. We'll then talk about also, by the way, there's also a blessing that has been changed on those weapons so that you can stack it more easily. You won't be able to get as much rending out of Blade Momentum, but you'll have more consistent rending up. By hitting multiple enemies, you'll stack your rending, and therefore you can kill crushers a little bit easier. But that's about all that this guy's getting. There is a slight change for the Heavy Eviscerator. The Heavy Eviscerator is getting a fix to an issue where you could accidentally cancel out of some of those chaining animations. So yeah, you could drop out of your attack chains. I don't think that was being countered by too many people. I don't know too many people who are using the Heavy Eviscerator. I think it was particularly the Mark 15 that this is happening on, but they have fixed that if you are a Heavy Eviscerator lover. Power Falchion. Power Falchion is getting a slight buff here. Notably, a lot of players realize that the Power Falchion just feels a little bit lackluster. You know, it's supposed to be the Relic Blade, the one-handed Relic Blade of the Veteran, but the problem being is that it didn't have enough oomph. Like, you would find yourself overwhelmed by enemies because you couldn't output enough damage at any given time. Like, what's the point of using the Power Falchion versus I don't know, some other good weapon, the dueling sword. It's supposed to be the counter, or sort of the counterpart to the power sword, where for the power sword you have to activate every time you want to do a couple of attacks. The power Falchion stays on for much longer, but you're going to get less oomph on every strike. Unfortunately, they tuned that oomph too far down, and so what they're doing here is they're giving it about 10% damage on all of its charged special, sort of empowered attacks. So that's good. That'll make empowering it feel a little bit better. The weapon is still really slow to move around with, which sucks, but maybe this will like level it out and make it a more usable alternative that can actually defend yourself in melee. Then we've got a very, very much a favorite of mine, which I'm excited to play with, the Power Maul. So the Power Maul had a rework a little while back. They brought it into the modern era, and they made it have this absolutely kaboom massive special attack that it has a 10-second cooldown, right? It has a 10-second overall cooldown. Now they have reduced that by 2 more seconds. So yeah, you're getting a quite a short cooldown, a nice short cooldown now on a very impactful attack. I can't wait to make some builds with this, plus the explosion radius, plus the fire on explosion talents on the tree. It'll be very cool. I think the Power Maul is shaping up. I would say it's the second most powerful melee weapon on the class. That's behind the Slab Shield, of course. The Slab Shield is because it offers so much of the utility that Ogryns really need to survive in the current absurd Ogryn-hating meta of the game. Then we'll go on to the big meat and potatoes of the build, Plasma Gun. Oh my gosh, guys, the Plasma Gun nerf is finally here. Now, notably, they didn't touch the damage. They didn't really hurt the damage at all. So what they've done here is they realized that players were pretty much only spamming light attacks, right? If we're being honest with ourselves, no one was realistically using the charge attack. And that's for a couple reasons. First of all, there was no benefits to using the charge attack. Many targets are getting overkilled by the charge attack. It's just far too much damage. And because the charge attack, the second you start to charge it up, it would immediately take 5 ammo from your supply. That meant if you aborted your shot early, you would end up taking like at least 6 ammo or 7 or even up to 9 if you had it fully charged. The only way you got an efficient trade on ammo compared to light attacks, which take 3 ammo, is to fully charge the attack up to the maximum. Then you would take 9, and it did kind of close to 3 times damage, but not really. And the other thing is that all attacks on this weapon previously had infinite cleave, aka 100 cleave value. So this meant that light attacks on this weapon could shoot through bulwarks, literally line up an infinite number of crushers. It would go all the way through them and do equal damage to all of them. That's what infinite cleave means. And so there was no reason to do anything but spamming light attacks, because with every attack, you could be targeting a different group. You could be potentially staggering them, killing the smaller ones. So what they've done is they have removed that infinite cleave from the light attack. It is now down to 18, which, as they clarify, the bolter, the Mark IIB bolt gun, that has a cleave of 3. The revolver has a cleave of 6.5. So this is triple the revolver, which can punch through like multiple targets in a row. So yeah, this is still an absurd amount of cleave. Remains to be seen whether it can still shoot through the shields on bulwarks, which is one thing it was stupidly good for. But yeah, that's just on the light attacks, by the way. What they've also done is they have shifted it so that the heavy attacks are what you'll want to do if you have a big long line of enemies you want to obliterate. So charging the weapon now, it will start at only having the power of a regular attack, actually a little bit less than a regular attack. So you'll start to charge it up, and you can fire it at any time. If you fire it immediately, you'll do very little damage, and you'll only consume 1 ammo, as compared to the 3 you normally consume with a light shot. But if you scale it all the way up, it goes all the way up to consuming 8 ammo, and then does the full damage of the attack. So it's much easier to pull off of shooting earlier and save yourself some ammo. And also, all heavy attacks will now have that still infinite cleave. So if you need to cleave through a big ass horde or go through bulwark shields, use the heavy attack, because it now has that property exclusively, which is good. And they really wanted to make this weapon not be the go-to de facto, sidearm that you can just whip out and just blast a guy, no problem. It's supposed to be a heavy weapon that you really, you charge it up and you go whap, whop, whop from a distance, not a close range, oh god, there's a guy right in my face, let me pull my plasma gun real quick, blam, like a shotgun sort of thing. But because Veteran has a 50% swap speed node at the top of the tree, it was really easy to equip this thing. What they've done is they've lowered the wield action by 15%. So it's going to be slower to equip this weapon when you're weapon swapping. And therefore, you're going to have to think about it a little bit more. You're going to have to charge your attacks a little bit more. It's not going to be the one-stop shop for, okay, I just need to obliterate this enemy who's like a half a meter away from me in the next millisecond. Okay, so I think that's pretty fair, honestly. The plasma gun is nowhere near weak, even after those changes. Okay, let's go on to another fan favorite weapon for all those out there who like to roleplay as guardsmen, the infantry Lazgun, getting some nice buffs here. So they really are trying to make the infantry Laz have an identity here, and its identity is efficiency. These are, these are infantry weapons. They are supposed to have lots and lots of ammo because you're out there in deployment shooting forever, right? So they are increasing magazine capacity and the reserves of the weapons quite a bit. So you're getting an extra mag on all these different marks, which is really good. That's about a 20% upgrade in terms of damage, and you're also getting some extra clip size, or actually magazine size, and that's really good. So that's going to increase the amount of ammo they have. Of course, this weapon a lot of times is used by veterans who are using Shock Trooper. Shock Trooper is going to give you free ammo whenever you crit, so you've got even more ammo now. And then we are also getting a nice buff to the unyielding damage on a couple of these marks, and the Mark 7 and the Mark 2B. And the Mark 2B, which is the one that's on the screen currently, that one is the fast firing mark. This one goes like pretty dang fast. Not quite recon Lazgun fast, but pretty fast. And this one, it was just too hard to control the recoil because of how fast it fired. They are lowering that recoil a lot, from 1.35 to 1. And yeah, that's pretty big. Like that is a pretty big reduction in terms of recoil. And they've also increased the hit scan radius on their projectiles. So it should be easier, ostensibly, to hit your shots and land the shots on target. Which, when they made this change to the Hellbore, even scrubs like me found the Hellbore to be a lot more usable because the bolts are a little bit wider. And so you would normally kind of miss a target very narrowly. Now you'll hit them just barely. And I think it's good. They have also really leaned into that efficiency, ammo conservation angle with the blessing efficiency. Efficiency previously, every 4 seconds, it would lower the cost of your next shot by 66%, so it would only cost 1/3 of the normal amount. But now it's every 0.5 seconds, which is a crazy buff. Like that efficiency blessing, I always looked at it and I was like, why? Who's only shooting their gun once every 4 seconds? But now if you shoot every half second, you're going to take 1/3 ammo. And that ammo might be free if you are using Shock Trooper. So you might not even need to use Shock Trooper if you have that blessing in there, which could save you a lot of points. So yeah, this weapon basically has infinite ammo now, which is cool. And we'll go on to another weapon that has struggled with ammo in the past, the Twin-Linked Heavy Stubber. Yes, if you did not see my video about the different classes and their various buffs and nerfs, the Ogren's Point-Blank Barrage did get a buff. So it might be back on the table. What basically it does now is when you activate it, you get 12 seconds to go ham, and then at the end you refund 50% of the ammo you spent during that spray down. So that will give new life to weapons that can use a lot of ammo in a 12-second period. Twin-Linked Heavy Stubbers is definitely on that list. So previously, the thing that was keeping these weapons alive was Point-Blank Barrage could stack up to 32 stacks of fire if you had this thing and you were just going absolutely ham. But they nerfed that to the ground, and at the same time, unfortunately, that took the fate of this weapon with it, because it just wasn't a very good weapon outside of that. It had poor damage per shot, and it was hard to land shots. Like, these things are not accurate at all. What they've done here is they have raised the accuracy of these weapons a lot, like 25%, which you'll see, like that is quite a spray reduction in terms of the maximum spread of the bullets. That's going to be way better to keep shots on target. You might even be able to hit weak points. Imagine that. We also got a pretty good upgrade between 10 and 20%, depending on what sort of target you're attacking, for your attack damage modifiers, which is just sort of the multiplier on the damage that you do. And you also are, sorry, scroll down the wrong thing, and you're also going to be getting a base damage buff of around like I would say like 7 or 8% as well. So yeah, not bad overall. They're getting a damage buff, they're getting an accuracy buff, they're getting a damage efficacy versus armor type buff. Good time to be the twin linked stubber. We'll see. I might make a build with it. If it's any good, I'll let you know. Then we'll go on to our second to last one, which is the Ogryn Ripper Gun. This one is odd. This weapon, like, I think it needs so much more help than what we're giving it here. Another one of those cases where it's like, why was this what they chose to address about this gun? But they are changing the special bayonet attack from light to heavy. Now, what does that mean? Like, okay, so early in this game, very early in the game, right after the introduction of talent trees, the weapon attacks were counted as heavies. All weapon attacks, like ranged weapon attacks, were counted as heavies. So one of the things players would do with the Ripper gun, with the grenade gauntlet, is they'd run around spamming the weapon special and meleeing with the gun, and it would immediately hit enemies with the heavy attack, which would then give you the 4 stacks of bleed that batter gives you. Because back in the day, it was only giving you those stacks on heavy. Now they have changed it to be a light attack instead to avoid that situation, and also so that it doesn't trigger other heavy attack triggering things. But they decided that this weapon here needs to count as a heavy. So what this will mean is, because there's a couple different talents, I'll just give you, of course, the example of batter here, but also best defense, which is the defensive note at the top of the tree for regenerating your toughness. When you melee an enemy, if you do a heavy attack, you get 15% of your toughness back. That means stabbing an enemy with the Ripper gun is going to apply 4 stacks of bleed now, and you'll get 15% of your toughness back. So not bad, right? Especially because this weapon has can opener, which is a nice brittleness debuff on its melee. I just don't know if it's like really what the weapon needed. Personally, for me, it just doesn't feel like it's worth it to bring this as a range weapon, because it can't really do what a range weapon needs to do, which is, you know, shoot things at a distance and get rid of them, because I'm always missing and wasting all my ammo. But maybe they'll come back for more of that later if it doesn't prove to be enough. And finally, an actual range weapon, which is the dual stub pistols. Now, these things, it doesn't sound like much, but they have made the spread on the hipfire and the braced like a lot better. From 2.2 to 1.9, from 2.35 to 1.9 when moving. Like, you don't have any penalty now for moving versus just standing still when you're hip firing, which is pretty cool. You get even tighter while you're moving when you are crouched. And if you brace, you're going down to 1.1, 1.2. That's the angles of deviation. So these things are pretty much pinpoint accurate now. You can definitely aim for heads with these, which is great. Previously, you were going to have to use the little twirly action in order to snipe for heads. But now, like, the reticle is so tight, especially, remember, this is the base things. There's also recoil reduction stuff in the Hive Scum talent tree. You can make these things absolutely lasers. And they are raising the attack damage modifiers on Flak by a little bit more than 10%, on Carapace from 1% to 10%. So you are getting 10 times the damage you were dealing before on Carapace. You're still doing almost no fucking damage to them. And you're getting 10% on Armored as well. You're getting upgrades on far damage against those. And they raise the base damages just a little bit, like just a couple, like 5 points. It won't matter that much. They raised the special damage, the little twirly attack, by about like 3% too. I don't think it really needed that stuff, but it's nice that you can actually kind of hurt crushers now, etc., etc. So overall, those are the buffs we got here, but I want to take a moment here at the end to talk about the buffs we didn't get. Here's the overall list of all the weapons in the game right now, and we're just going to go through and highlight the weapons that I really, really like. Maybe they're coming soon, right? Maybe they are working and they're going to be releasing them in cycles where they do like this, like 1/3 of them, 1/3 of them, 1/3 of them. But, you know, there are so many weapons that need help. Personally, I think the bully clubs, in large part, especially the Mark 1 and the Mark 2, are in need of help. Because, yeah, like Ogryn in general is in need of help. We have this combat access one right here needs some help. Infantry auto guns need big help. Vigilant auto guns need big help. Braced auto guns need big help. Scrolling down. The shovels, like certain marks of the shovels are just kind of worthless. The cleavers, oh my god, please save us, cleavers. Single-handed chain swords, even after the buffs that happened, I think those were in... was that with the Hive Scum update? Maybe it still just is not enough. And all the way down here, we got the Thunderhammer buff, but please do another round of buffs. Double-barreled shotgun, just a weird weapon to play with currently. Not ammo efficient at all. And scrolling down. More vigilant autoguns. We just got infantry Lazguns, so I think that'll probably be good for now. More cleaver action. The kickback could definitely use some love to make it do anything, because it's just not able to kill anything over a certain difficulty, because Carapace exists. And the shovels for the veteran could use some love. Chain axes are probably okay, just okay. And yeah, that rounds out the list. But yeah, there's quite a number of weapons in here that just, man, like, why would you ever use them, right? And I think that they may be working on that, maybe going forward, but I would really, really love to see a situation like think about like the Hive scum, right? All the weapons the Hive scum came out with are pretty dang usable. All his range weapons are usable, all his melee weapons are usable, you know, the 3 and the 3. That's a good place for a class to be in. But I just don't feel like they're, especially on the Ogren class, he's got so many stinker weapons, and it really sucks. Almost all bullet-based weapons in the game, like infantry autogun, like braced autogun, like vigilant autogun, they just are terrible. They use far too much ammo, and there's no parity between laser weapons and bullet weapons, as I've made this point a number of times, including in a big video. So yeah, I would love to see more changes more often. Maybe that's what we're getting this year. Again, I'm not holding my breath for it, but yeah, just got to put that here at the end to manifest it into existence. Again, thank you everyone for watching this far. I hope you are eager to enjoy the new update and play with new things like the further upgraded Power Maul. I certainly am. I'll see you out there in a couple days' time. Mystery out. Bye-bye.